this is day 2 of week 10 of 52 weeks of vlogging, and today we're going to talk about some sciencey stuff. We're going to talk about those Frankenbeasts that we like to call GMOs. Now, GMO stands for genetically modified organism, and there are all kinds of GMOs out there, maybe even more than you know of, like cats that glow in the dark, or trees that suck up groundwater pollutants and absorb them, or goats that spin spider's web silk in their breast milk. Imagine the surprise those kids are going to get when they latch onto mommy for an afternoon snack. But we're not going to talk about those GMOs today. We're going to talk specifically about the GMOs that we eat, like corn and soy. If you don't think you're eating GMOs, then think again. 90% of the corn and soybeans grown in the United States are estimated to be genetically modified. That includes cereal, cookies, candy bars, ice cream, anything that contains soy lecithin or dextrose or modified corn syrup, candy, which is a lot. Probably at least half, if not more than half, of what you eat. Basically, if it's processed and you're eating it, then you're eating genetically modified stuff. Now, recently the Hawaiian legislature tabled a motion that was supposed to require labeling on imported genetically modified food. And before that, in November of 2012, Proposition 37, which was supposed to require labeling on genetically modified food, was defeated in California. Now, this should not be surprising. For one thing, a few major companies, including Monsanto and DuPont, launched a $46 million anti-Proposition 37 campaign. So it was pretty much guaranteed to go down the gutter anyway. But on top of that, the law itself had a lot of holes. For one thing, it would have required labeling on GMO food you would buy in the store, but not on food you would order in a restaurant. And it also required labeling on feedstock, but not on the animals eating the feedstock. So there were a lot of things that needed to be addressed with this law. It was very badly worded, it was very quickly written, and despite the large number of people lobbying for it, it's not that surprising that it didn't pass. Now, it's important to note that as of today, scientists don't have a great deal of evidence showing that GMO food can be harmful to humans. That said, this probably won't be the end of bills like Proposition 37. And here's why. People still have a couple major concerns about GMO food. One of them is that it could be harmful to our health. Even though we don't have evidence to show it now, that doesn't mean that evidence isn't going to show up sometime down the road in, say, 30 years. I mean, just look at what happened with Teflon. Everybody thought it was wonderful and amazing when it came out in the 40s, and pretty soon everybody had it. It was covering all our pots and pans. We were all cooking with it. And then in the early 2000s, somebody realizes, oops, Teflon is actually leaching out harmful gases called perfluorooctanoic acid, and they just might maybe sort of be linked to cancer, and oops. And this is always a concern. Anytime we come up with something new or innovative that hasn't been tested for literally decades, we do run the risk of coming up with something that is actually going to end up harming people more than we initially thought it would. But above and beyond that, we need to examine why GMO foods are being created in the first place. And to do that, we have to go back and take another look at Monsanto. Monsanto's primary goal with creating genetically modified seed crop, namely corn, rice, soy, those kinds of things, is to create something that can withstand larger quantities of herbicides so that when farmers spray their field, they don't risk wiping out their good crop in addition to all the weeds and things that they want to get rid of. For example, Monsanto has a brand of Roundup Ready seeds, which means they produce Roundup herbicide, and then they produce seeds that are immune to Roundup. Farmers buy both, they plant the Roundup Ready seeds, they spray the Roundup all over the place, the seeds still do well, they have lots of corn to sell, or wheat, or rice, or whatever it is that they're growing. They're happy because they have fewer weeds and a higher crop yield. But are we happy? Studies have shown that upwards of 7% more pesticides have been being sprayed since Monsanto launched their Roundup Ready seeds. Among the many ingredients of Roundup is polyethoxylated toluamine, or POEA. This has been linked with cell damage and even cell death, which means it could be harming us in ways that we haven't quite figured out yet. It's tricky to figure out these ways because Monsanto and other pesticide-making companies tend to be the people funding the studies that are there to figure out if their products are hurting us, which is kind of a conflict of interest, maybe a little bit. Now, the EPA is expected to conduct a review of Roundup by the year 2015, so until then, we're just going to have to bide our time, be aware that GMO products could have an awful lot of Roundup or other type pesticides on them, and act accordingly. If you want to avoid GMOs, there are two easy things to do. One is to grow your own stuff with non-genetically modified seed stock. Another thing you can do is just buy organic. Organic certification excludes the use of GMOs. So if it's GMO, it doesn't get the organic label on it. And that's one way to definitely know what you are and are not eating. Meanwhile, there is one genetically modified food product that I am all in favor of, and that is the banana vaccine. Now, it should be said that I am pro-vaccine in principle, but anti-vaccine in practice, which doesn't sound so great, so let me explain. I like the idea of vaccines. I understand how vaccines work. Basically, you take a dead or weak version of a virus and you inject it into a living person, and their body creates antibodies to fight off that dead or weakened version of the virus, and then they become immune because once you've made antibodies to a virus, you remember how to make them the next time the virus meets your body. And I think this is a really, really good idea. However, we never just inject that dead or weakened version of the virus. We also inject a cocktail of other things that are there to either preserve the virus or keep it in its weakened state or do other stuff that I don't know about. These things include chemicals like formaldehyde, which is so carcinogenic and dangerous that it's been banned in all children's clothing, furniture covers, all kinds of other things around kids and people. So why are we putting it in our bodies? And then there are things that are used to breed the virus, like egg white, which my whole family is allergic to. So any vaccine containing egg white, like the flu shot, for example, is off limits to us. I am not against vaccines, but I am against the way they're currently manufactured and distributed. Enter the banana! Way back in 2007, some scientists figured out how to take the genetic material from hepatitis B. DNA is basically protein chains. I covered this in a video I did for the 365 Nerds channel, linked down in the description. And they inserted that genetic material into banana plants, which then reproduced and produced bananas, which contained within their DNA the inert versions of the hepatitis B, which means that if you eat that banana, your body will then start to produce antibodies to that hepatitis B virus, which means that it could be a vaccine in a food, which is awesome. Now, these scientists figured out how to do this to all kinds of crops. They figured out how to do it to tobacco, potatoes, hairy potato roots, bananas, lettuce, lupins. But they ran into a few problems with a bunch of the foods. For one thing, tobacco isn't even a food product, and most people don't even use it, so that kind of excludes that one, because it needs to be something that everybody would want and want to eat, which, yuck. Lettuce had major transportation and storage issues. It just goes bad too quickly. Potatoes had to be cooked before they were eaten, and cooking it changed the antigens structure, so that didn't work out so well. Potato hairy roots, ugh. And then bananas. Bananas are the thing that everybody likes, everybody eats. They can be transported easily, they can be grown easily. They were basically perfect, except for the fact that they had one of the lowest levels of expression of the antigen within the fruit of all the things that they tested, which sucked. So for the past several years, they've been continuing to work on refining that banana vaccine, and hopefully one day in the not too distant future, we will be able to buy genetically modified and labeled banana vaccines from the doctor or pharmacy or supermarket. I don't know how they'll work it, but it would be awesome. That's it from me for today. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you want to see more, you can subscribe using that button right down there. You can also find me on Facebook and Twitter, on Google+, and on my blog. Links all in the description. Remember, those thumbs ups and shares make a difference, so like it if you like it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.